Admittedly, I haven't read many of the Star Wars High Republic novels, so I'm not really an authority by any means. I have read a few of them, though, and from what I've read, wow, this new timeline. Wait, yeah, it's new. This isn't an Old Republic replacement. It isn't a reboot of the Old Republic, neither. The Old Republic was some 25,000 years prior to the Phantom Menace, while the High Republic begins about 250 years prior to the Phantom Menace. And Jar Jar Binks. Don't worry, Jar Jar Binks approves this message.
Hi, Misa called Jar Jar Binks, and Misa approved this bombad message.
That was a horrible impression. How embarrassing. Anyways, yes, the High Republic is a different timeline than anything we have seen so far in Star Wars, and this gives Lucasfilm a lot of wiggle room to develop new characters and stories without breaking established Star Wars lore. Okay, without damaging established Star Wars lore. In this new timeline, there are subtle differences in the way the Jedi interact with one another. It seems emotional and even physical attachments aren't as forbidding at this time that we've seen before. And that still doesn't break Star Wars lore. We never really knew if attachments were allowed during this time or anything before the movies that we've seen. Remember, it's all new. I keep saying that. But we know Luke Skywalker married in the old expanded universe. Is it possible he took some of the things that worked from the Old Republic, the High Republic, and the Star Wars prequel era? In the Legends material, I mean. But with the High Republic Jedi comes a new adversary. And what good would a Jedi story be without a formidable foe? Seriously, how fun would a story be that just told of all this stuff going right? If that's what we wanted, we would go watch Barney or something. Nope, we want a villain that is just as interesting as the heroes, and the High Republic has that villain in Marchion Ro. As the leader of the conglomerate pirate gang known as the Nile, Marchion Ro seems just that, nihilistic in his mannerisms. I'd imagine his heart rate never elevates even when committing the dastardliest of deeds. Yes, I said dastardliest. If you don't think that's a real adjective, well, think again. Microsoft Word auto-corrected to it. I didn't think it was a word neither. Oh well, dastardliest. I like it. Marchion Ro is the dastardliest summon on besting bestage that these Jedi will ever face.
You fucking sneaky bastard.
But before I continue with Marchion Ro, a quick word from our sponsor, me. Hit the subscribe button and give the video a big stupid thumbs up. I'm on a voyage to hit 50,000 subscribers, and I'd like you all to be a part of that journey. I know every freaking YouTube channel asks for your subscription, but mine is special. Why? Because it's freaking Star Wars, baby, and I absolutely promise to deliver on my word. With me, you'll get the best Star Wars content YouTube has to offer, and I'll deliver it in a way that's fun and engaging. And it's all original content, too. No rehashes of what other channels talk about. If you're looking for someone to bore you to sleep, I'm not that guy. But if you want to have fun and party like it's 19 BBY, welcome home. Now, let's get on with Star Wars The High Republic and Marchion Ro. Yeah, after you watch my cheesy animation video. Hehe. Aw, that was cute. Anyways, I've been wanting to talk about Marchion Ro for a while, but I wanted to hold off until I read more of the novels, but I just couldn't contain myself any longer. With the Star Wars series, The Acolyte, beginning sometime in 2024, and being that it takes place near the end of the High Republic, I'd say Marchion Ro probably won't be in it. And that's a shame. Now, I'm just speculating on that because, as I said, the High Republic takes place around 250 years prior to the Phantom Menace, and ends roughly 100 years before Jar Jar Binks stepped in poop on Tatooine.
Better wipe it off. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Unless Marchion Ro can live 100 years or more. I guess that's possible. Yoda lived to be over 900 years old and Chewbacca over 200. So maybe there are more out there with extended life expectancies. With Star Wars, we usually get decent villains. When Darth Vader entered the scene in 1977, we thought, damn, this guy's brutal. Then we got the aptly named Emperor in The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and this guy was even more ruthless. Since then, we've had a plethora of Star Wars villains that have captivated our imaginations, but there has been a trope, a style to them. Most have been of these same origins, Palpatine, and most have had the same goal, either create the Empire, preserve the Empire, or bring the Empire back, or even bring the Empire down in Maul's case. And there hasn't been much deviation from that in these Star Wars movies and series. Note, I am excluding the Old Republic and Legends, or Expanded Universe. I guess I could say the Thrawn novels are a bit different as well, but we know they lead to Thrawn being in the Empire, and there are stories of the Emperor in it. Marchion Ro is a different kind of villain, though. He isn't there to begin any plans of a Sith takeover. Sure, his actions will likely lead to the seeds that spring the demon tree that is Palpatine and his Empire, but it isn't part of his grand plan. Marchion Ro's lineage goes back generations, and if you want to know how evil the Ro family is, they held a woman prisoner for 100 years, keeping her alive in a containment chamber. The prisoner had a special gift that allowed the Ros to navigate hyperspace lanes in the Outer Rim, and at this time, the Outer Rim was largely uncharted to navigate, and it was dangerous, to say the least. But this prisoner allowed Marchion Ro and his Nihil to pop up just about anywhere, quickly and without warning. To start the story of the High Republic, Marchion Ro had dispatched one of his Nihil ships to a hyperspace lane where a transport ship was traveling. The two ships collided in hyperspace, and debris from both ships shot out of hyperspace at near light speed and rained on multiple systems. Some planets were completely destroyed, while others had loss of life and resources that were so bad they abandoned it altogether. The targeted ship contained supplies and travelers to the Outer Rim, where people from the core worlds were looking to settle. Everyone aboard the ship was killed. When I read this, I was thinking, man, Star Wars just got real. Not that it wasn't before, but the opening was telling the lives of the ship's captain and travelers. Innocent people just looking for a new life. Imagine if we had seen life on Alderaan just before the Death Star blew it up. And as soon as you start getting into the characters on this ship, boom, they're gone. Almost like Game of Thrones, where no one is safe. At this time, Marchion Ro was called the Eye. He was the leader, but there were 3 other members of the Nihil who shared leadership. It had been this way since Marchion Ro's grandmother, but not long into the stories, Marchion Ro killed one of the other leaders and dared the remaining 2 to challenge his authority. This guy really believes in speaking softly while carrying a big stick. No, that isn't an analogy for something else. Geez, perverts. Gross. Marchion Ro is probably one of the coolest villains to come out of recent Star Wars stories, and the High Republic novels are actually good, from what I've read so far. I was on the fence about them when they were announced, but giving Lucasfilm a clean sandbox was the very thing it needed with this era. Like The Mandalorian Season 1, it has all new characters, aside from Yoda, and he's limited. But how can they screw this up? As long as they make the stories compelling, and so far they did. They really can't. But there are some things in the High Republic that are pretty goofy, and I'll get back to Marchion Ro in just a minute. One of the goofiest things I've seen is the names of some of the characters. Loden Greatstorm. What the hell? Was he named in Middle-earth? Seriously, Star Wars has some of the coolest names of any franchise, but this one just sounds like it doesn't belong. Names like Darth Vader, Boba Fett, Nihilus, freaking Maul. Then you have Loden Greatstorm. Every time I say his name, it makes me chuckle a little bit, and it kind of takes me out of the Star Wars universe and slams me into The Witcher. Can they just edit these novels and change his name to Greg or something? How about Sarge? Is that one taken? Anything is better than Loden Greatstorm. Another silly part of the High Republic is the rock that everyone was freaking out about. Yes, this is a character. It's a rock. His name, presuming it's a male, well, his name is Geode. Kind of fitting for a rock. But it isn't what everyone thought, and it isn't as big a deal as everyone made it. It's just a little goofy. The Rock doesn't really do anything other than appear in strange places without any notice of movement. I mean, it's a freaking rock. Geode is part of this hippie crew side story in the novel Into the Darkness. Not that there's anything wrong with hippies, but this too seems a bit out of place. In one scene, it's described as Geode stares blankly. Well, yeah. It's a freaking rock. As disturbing as it is, it would have been more disturbing if the freaking rock showed any emotion. But alas, he doesn't, and that's a good thing. The last bit of goofiness comes in the form of sentient plants called the Drengir. Again, introduced Into the Darkness. These plants are special. They are consumed by the dark side of the forest, and they are nearly unstoppable, like an army of evil Groots. Yes, Groot. From Guardians of the Galaxy. It's like they were thinking, okay, the MCU has a sentient plant. Why can't we? Let's make 1,000,000 of them. Well, Groot was a fun character, and these Drengir are not. I know they're meant to be scary, and they kind of are, but come on, they're plants. But it's ironic that the hippies are confronted by one of the very things hippies love. Okay, those are my issues with the novels so far, but with those things, Into the Darkness is actually a good novel. I give it about a 7, and I rank it that high because it shows the Jedi aren't as wonderful as the High Republic era would have us think. They are kind of morons when it comes to the Drengir. And no, I'm not hating on Jedi. It's just nice that they aren't seen as these OP light-side beings born of dust from a supernova. They're flawed, and that makes them interesting. What good is having a protagonist that we know nothing bad will happen to? I'm looking at you, first 4 Indiana Jones films. Yeah, they should retitle them, How Many People Can Shoot at Indiana Jones and Miss? If you went into the latest Indiana Jones film expecting something less cheesy, I'm sorry. Go watch the first 4 again. See what you think. I mean, the guy was only shot by one Nazi in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and the guy was 12 inches away from him. And add a couple more feet, and the Nazi surely would have missed. Stupid plot armor. Anyway, where was I? Sorry about that. Oh yeah, Marchion Ro. I really don't want to give away too much about the guy, but I'd compare him to a technological Norman Bates. Cold, soft-spoken, and just all around cruel. Just when you think he may get a redemption arc, bam, you want to see his demise. Speaking of loading Greatstorm, Marchion Ro captured him. He kept him in a cell that kept his force abilities on lockdown. Again, I don't want to give away too much. If you don't want to pay for the novels, the audiobooks are a great way to get the stories. I really can't wait for these stories to culminate in live action in The Acolyte. We have already seen bits of it in Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and even those tidbits are a great introduction to the High Republic era. I'm sure someone on YouTube has the cutscenes. Maybe I'll make my own video including those cutscenes. But yeah, Marchion Ro. He's a different kind of villain in Star Wars universe, and he's a great way to break up what can sometimes seem monotonous in Star Wars villainy. Not that I'd ever get bored with what we have, it's just refreshing to break away from the typical Sith once in a while. Just don't make it a habit. We already have Marchion Ro in the High Republic and Jixtus in the Thrawn Ascendancy novels. But I'd like to know what you think. Have you read the High Republic novels? Are you on the fence about it, or the Acolyte? And by the way, the Acolyte has not been canceled. Filming wrapped up last month. They aren't going to pay all that money and use all the resources to just cancel a series. I don't know who started this rumor or why. Well, nor do I really care. It's just silly. But before I take off, yeah, I know you'll be sad. Okay, not really. Here's a quick word from our sponsor, me. Hit the subscribe button and give the video a like. I'm really trying to hit 50,000 subscribers, and I'd like you all to be a part of that next phase of this channel. The YouTube algorithm is harder than getting the Mos Eisley Cantina to serve their kind. But together, we can conquer this YouTube algorithm and end droid discrimination. Thank you all for hanging out with me today. Until the next video, this is Gerald, a Star Wars fanatic, wishing you all great health, happiness, and peace. Thank you all for watching, and remember, this is the way, and a strong Star Wars community should be the only way.